All right. Town of Clayton, I'd like to call this special town council meeting to order. I ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Most gracious and heavenly Father, thank you so much for the many blessings of this day. And we ask, Lord, now that you be with us as we proceed with the business for the town of Clayton. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Under new business this evening is the town manager search, and we're pleased to have with us this evening Mr. Ellis Hankins. He's the Senior Vice President of the Mercer Group that is going to be assisting the town of Clayton in the search for our new manager. So Ellis, I'll turn it over to you.
Mr. Mayor and council members and all, it is good to be back here and good to be back with you. And I appreciate your confidence in our firm to assist you all with this important town manager search. So if I may, I would like to spend just a few minutes, very briefly, going through just a handful of PowerPoint slides to do several things before I know you want to open the floor to hear comments from some of your citizens who may want to speak about what they think you ought to be looking for in your next town manager. And others who are not here to do that, certainly who might be watching or otherwise, can certainly send those comments to your town clerk and they will get to me. But I'm a guy whose name is on the screen, Ellis Hankins. I am associated with the Mercer Group, which is a nationwide public sector consulting firm. We do a lot of these executive searches, all in the public sector, mostly for municipalities and counties, but for some other entities also, like public risk pools across the country. I have 13 partners who live in a bunch of other states. We work together remotely and share information, help each other. I want to start by talking for a minute, very briefly, just about the council manager form of government and what that is and how it works. And that, obviously, that is the form of government under which the town of Clayton operates, and most of our sizable, in fact, all of our sizable cities in North Carolina and all 100 of our counties have that form of government. And it works like it says on the screen. Citizens do their job on election day and elect the mayor and town council to be the policy-making body, to make policy decisions, approve the budget, and appoint the town manager, and oversee operations and services. That does not mean that the elected officials day-to-day, hands-on are in charge of administering the town and providing town services. It means you all appoint the town manager and charge him or her with that responsibility and that authority. The town manager, under your supervision, recommends the budget, administers the budget through the fiscal year, appoints and supervises the department directors, and generally directs operations and services under the council's policies. All that is provided for by statute. The town of Clayton operates under that form of government. It works well and has for decades in cities across North Carolina and the nation. So this search process, this is the town council search. You have the statutory authority and responsibility, and under your charter, to select and appoint the town manager. Our job is to assist you in doing that, to help you go out and recruit, attract a sizable group of well-qualified candidates for your consideration, and provide professional assistance and advice to you all through the process, but it's your search. So our first step started today to engage in discussions with you all. I talked, with one exception, with each of you all individually today, and now here you are in the council meeting, and you can continue the discussion as a group if you want about what it is you all think you ought to be looking for in terms of background, experience, qualifications, and characteristics that you think you all need, the town needs, in the next manager. Going to talk with Mr. Holder on Monday morning. I also had a long discussion with your very capable group of senior management staff, your two deputy managers and your department directors this afternoon. It is always important to give town employees a say, and a meaningful say, in what you all ought to be looking for in your next manager. Obviously, they are going to be able, they're going to need to and have to be able to work with the next manager to continue to serve your citizens. So they're very interested in this search. We also are very happy to, let me go back to that slide. We're very happy also to talk with interested citizens in town. Kimberly has my contact information, is free to provide that. I would be happy on your behalf to talk with interested citizens and hear those comments about what folks think you ought to be looking for. Now, the work product that we are working toward, the mayor, I think, walked out with my only copy this morning, this afternoon, but that's all right. It's a recruitment brochure that will, when completed and approved by the council, will talk a lot about your town and Johnston County and how your town government is organized and the size of your budget, the number of employees, et cetera. And it will contain a list of criteria, those things I just talked about: qualifications, general background, experience, and characteristics that you all decided that you are looking for. We'll list those in that recruitment brochure. That's why I need all of those comments and those suggestions, input, and we'll write all that down. And then that recruitment brochure becomes the primary recruitment tool. I will distribute that thing far and wide, send it to a lot of managers, send it to a lot of folks that I would like to get interested potentially in this position. I'll ask for help from other folks to help me identify folks who might be a good fit for your criteria, but we'll engage in some active recruiting. I have two action items for you all later in the meeting. The timeline for this search with whatever adjustments you all want to make to it, and then ask you to approve that and then stick to it with my help. And then the job ad. I've given you all through Kimberly a draft job ad. I was talking with your HR director this afternoon. There's nothing magic about a job ad. We just need to put that out there with accurate information as a start toward informing potential candidates of the availability of this position. So we'll post that in all kinds of places: the League of Municipalities, Association of County Commissioners, the National Association of City Managers, LinkedIn, some other places, to start getting the attention of potential candidates. But we don't stop there by any means. We will start then engaging in very active recruiting, a lot of targeted phone calls, trying to get managers with some hands-on experience who might be a good fit here, interested in considering applying for the position. Under this timeline, if you approve it, the so-called soft application deadline is right before Christmas, December 22nd. Job ad will run for about 6.5 weeks. As applications come in, I will be evaluating those, and the strongest ones will be put aside, and those folks will start to get phone calls from me. I will start getting to know those folks, talking with the strongest candidates, and beginning preliminary background checks about who they are. A lot of Google searches. Don't want any surprises about things in their background. That will go on past the application deadline. We may get applications a day or two or three past that deadline. We always reserve your right to consider strong applications that might come in a day or two or three late, but can't go very long. Eventually, the time does come that we need to quit and just send written information to you about the strongest candidates 2 or 3 days in advance of your meeting. So on this schedule, about January 5th, first week of January next year, I will come here and meet with you in a closed session called the semifinalist selection meeting to help you all through a discussion about the candidates that we see as the strongest candidates, external or internal. Everyone needs to receive the same fair and objective consideration. And your task at the end of that discussion, after we've talked about the relative strengths and weaknesses of those candidates and evaluated them compared to the criteria that you all established to tell us and everyone what you were looking for, your task then is to invite a reasonable number of folks to a personal interview. And I will handle the mechanics of that for you. We've scheduled tentatively those interviews for about January 22nd. And between that date you select those folks and the interview day, I have a lot of work to do. Obviously, to get those folks scheduled for interviews that day. You can reasonably interview as many as 7 candidates in one day, but no more than that. I've worked with councils that interviewed 9, so that's a day and a half. I work with a state league search committee who interviewed 11 candidates. That was a full 2 days. Don't suggest that you try to do that. Get it down to a reasonable number after a lot of discussion. But keep an open mind in the process. I'm going to mention that again in a minute. But during that period of time, we like to complete the formal background check of these candidates. Again, don't want any surprises. By the day you interview folks, I want an opportunity to have already talked with these folks about things that pop up on that background check. Most things are not fatal flaws. There might be, and to tell you the background check that we do, obviously motor vehicle and criminal background check, credit checks, because town managers deal with a lot of public funds that you entrust them with and our citizens entrust them with. We'll obviously verify their work history, their educational degrees, talk with a couple at least of preliminary references, more later. And we may come across some past credit difficulties, that sort of thing. There can be good reasons for that. A serious medical illness in the family that caused some credit problems. But I want to hear a good explanation for things like that and let you know about it right after you conduct the interviews. Every now and then, someone will lie to us about a degree or something like that. That is a fatal flaw, and we certainly, on behalf of the bodies we were working for, have revoked interview invitations. That's not likely to happen here, but you know the old saying, trust and verify, and we will. By the time you convene for the interviews, probably around January 22nd, we also will have some other information for you. and we'll send it to you in a package. We'll send candidates a list of questions to answer in writing, things like their management style, professional accomplishments they're most proud of, et cetera. So I'm a lawyer, so that last question always, so Catherine, the last question always is, tell us anything in your past that you want us to know about that might require some explanation, something like that, maybe not those words. We're not going to find every single thing in a background check, as careful as we can be. It is difficult to find criminal violations in some other states, for example, and, things like a DWI conviction when they were in college 20 years ago, that's one thing. But more recent significant issues, we certainly want to know about and let you know about. But when I send you all that information, including those answers to those supplemental questions, you have a writing sample. You see whether the person expresses themselves, he or she, well in writing and can write in a concise way without writing a book. It gives you a lot more insight into their management style and just who they are and how they would work with you and with your town employees. So you spend most of that day on about January 22nd on interviews. You might, at the end of that day, focus in on a candidate or maybe two candidates. You might invite one or two people back for a second interview. Let me back up for just a minute. I told you today that I had this afternoon, a productive discussion with your group of department directors and your two deputy managers. I do want to talk with you some more, the council, some more about potential opportunities for further involvement as appropriate by your department directors in the process, but that's up to you all. I've got some ideas about options that have worked well in some other places. But there's a strong interest in that. So that bears some discussion, and I look forward to talking with you about that. After you have decided on your preferred candidate after one or two interviews, part of our contract with you is to help negotiate the terms of employment under the instructions you give me. Obviously salary, but other terms of employment. And once we have And in that process, certainly consult with your HR director about your benefits and et cetera. I'll work with your town attorney. I'm not your lawyer, she is, about drafting probably an employment agreement with the new manager to write everything down and have the working relationship clear from the very beginning. And then in an open meeting, as the open meetings law requires, you will, when time comes, vote to appoint the new town manager in an open meeting, probably about first week of February. And if it's an external candidate who is employed somewhere else, then obviously it's going to take that person a while to give a reasonable notice and to get here, begin work, maybe take a few days off, but 30 days, maybe as long as 60 days to get here and start work. Part of our contract also is to provide some transition assistance to work with the HR director to get the person on board, in a few days, maybe a week, to work with the interim town manager. In this case, probably your interim town manager is not going anywhere for a while, even after that. But an orderly transition is part of what we want to help you all accomplish and get off to a good start with the new manager. You all will hear me through this process, encourage you all of you, every day, to keep an open mind, no preconceived notions, no presumptive finalist. Don't make any decisions until it's time to do it, until after the interviews are completed, and you all have an opportunity to talk with each other about what you think is the best candidate, most strongly qualified, and the best fit for Clayton under those criteria, the criteria that you all have established. The law requires you all to keep the personnel information confidential, and you owe that duty to each other to protect the integrity of the process. The law allows you all to keep the process confidential to the very end. You can, if you want, do what some councils tend to do in larger cities, have some sort of a finalist forum or some such. We're agnostic on that. We don't have one opinion, not one way or the other. That tends to be something that city councils in the larger cities think about doing. But the citizen, last point on that screen, your citizens elected you all to make decisions like this with meaningful opportunities for input from the public and your employees about what kind of manager the town needs. But ultimately, it is your decision. My job to help you. So those are all my comments. And Mr. Mayor, I think we're at the point that if anyone has comments about what they think you ought to be looking for, or whenever you want to do that, those comments will be appropriate.
All right. Thank you very much, Ellis. It's very informative. Okay, this has been noted as a public meeting, and if there is anyone who wishes to speak to the council and for the record, please step forward and state your name for the record. All right. It really sends a message that they are counting on us to select an amazing town manager. Definitely. So if there are no comments, then I will turn it back over to Ellis, and I'm assuming that now would be an appropriate time, unless you have some additional comments, to approve the revised search timeline and to approve the job advertisement.
No additional comments except to say again, for anyone who may be watching, happy to receive comments from your interested citizens through the town clerk if they would just send those to her. And she certainly, upon request, is free to give folks my contact information. I would look forward to talking with your interested citizens. But Mr. Mayor, as I said, the two action items are to discuss in whichever order you'd like the draft job description and approve that so I can post it this weekend, and the proposed search timeline.
All right. Any questions or comments from council? Mr. Holder.
On the ad that you put in here, I'm a little concerned about the 10 years of experience. I think that should be closer to 15 or 20.
Well, let me give you my thoughts on that. That's one of the things that certainly is entirely up to you all. I said several times today in talking with you all and your department directors that if I do my job well here on your behalf, that we're going to be able to attract a well-qualified group of candidates who are all well-qualified, who are at different levels of experience. That number varies in these depending on what town, what city we're in and working with. It can be 5 years, 7, 10. I picked 10, but that's your decision, and everything else in this draft job ad is up to you all. Managers can get a lot of relevant experience the first 10 years out. Sometimes work their way up through local government organizations. Start out maybe not as a department director, but as a line employee in one department or another, maybe go into a supervisory or department director position, maybe become an assistant manager, and maybe then within that 10-year period serve as a manager in their first manager job in a small town, and become pretty well qualified. Now, the other thing I'm going to do with this job ad, I'm not just going to post it on those sites that I mentioned. I'm going to send it to the Master of Public Administration programs around the state. We are not looking for their recent graduates. They will post it on their listservs that their alumni pay attention to. They go back and check that site. And we are then talking about folks 10, 15 years out in terms of experience. These really are minimum qualifications. So I would advise against making the minimum qualifications too stringent. That's why I picked 10 years. You all are going to be free, in your judgment, to consider folks who have relevant experience way past that 10-year minimum threshold. You're going to get some folks who have relatively fewer years of experience, some of whom probably are not ready for these challenges in a growing town like this, who probably are not likely to be recommended by me for your further consideration when you have that closed session. But some of them with that level of experience probably are going to, in my best judgment, going to have enough relevant experience and have that level of personal and professional maturity and professional confidence that I then can tell you with some confidence that maybe I think this is a rising star that maybe you all ought to seriously consider along with the others. But you all get to choose who to invite for the interview. Long answer, but that's my thought.
Any other comments?
Ellis, I do want to thank you. I know I met you this morning. Very impressed with the process you've put together. As I told you this morning, me personally, looking for the word, and you know what I'm talking about, seasoned professional. And that's where I'm hoping that we're going to end up at. So thank you once again. Very impressive.
I told you this morning, I think, and I think I've mentioned to most of you, that the last town manager search I did earlier this year working with the council was a town near Charlotte. Same growth opportunities and challenges that you are facing. That council interviewed 6, may have been 7, I think it was 6 semifinalists. They had a pretty good mix of folks, 1 or 2 folks who were earlier in their career, some in the middle. 3 of those folks were veteran managers, maybe looking for one last job in a community like that where they could make a significant contribution, 5 years, maybe as long as 10. They selected one of those veterans because they wanted a mentor. They didn't necessarily want a 10-year manager, but they wanted a good sound manager who could be a good mentor to some younger, very capable members of the town staff. There you go. And help develop them and help them become capable of doing more. So those are the decisions you're just going to need to make at the end of the process. You're going to have an opportunity to compare and contrast folks who are well qualified.
How long does, on average, does a town manager's job turn over?
I mean, I haven't read any objective studies lately in this state, but my best guess is on average 4, 5, 6 years. On the other hand, I know, some of you all know, managers who have been in the position for 20, 30 years. Rick Hester's been your county manager for a good while now. And there are certainly veteran city managers who only work for one city in their entire career. One of my good friends is the now retired city manager in Albemarle in Stanley County, west of here. And he went to work for that city as an intern out of the MPA program at UNC and never worked anywhere else until he retired as city manager. So.
Wow. All right. Anyone else? Mr. Granis?
One of the things that impressed me during our session, Ellis, today was the brochure information that you provided. And in going through there are multiple items that really fit right into what I think we're looking for. And I think this document that you did provide is very beneficial to us, which can enhance, I think, our ability to get really clear from council's point of view with respect to what we're looking for. So I really appreciate that.
Very good. Well, it says right at the top, that came right out of the Indian Trail Town Manager Recruitment Brochure. I gave that to you all as an example of one of the more recent ones that I have drafted. Let me say again, I will appreciate you all getting back to me, and if there are items on that list that just don't apply to Clayton that ought to be deleted, let me know. If there are things, important things that are not on it, let me know, we'll add it. We'll edit it however you all see fit. Ultimately, I will send you all the draft of this recruitment brochure for your informal approval, and then we'll send it off to our graphic designer with photographs that I'm going to get, and it'll end up being very attractive and tell folks about the town of Clayton.
Awesome. All right, anyone else? If not, then, gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to approve the revised search timeline that's been presented in your packet.
Mr. Mayor, if I may make a few comments about that after you get a motion and second.
Motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Would encourage you to look very carefully at the meetings for the council as proposed. Those are not etched in stone. Those are subject to you all adjusting them some a little bit. Look at where it says council meeting several times or council interviews in shaded with yellow, and just make sure that those dates work for you all with your calendar. We can move those 2 or 3 days one direction or the other. Those are the general time periods, but before you all approve that, I want to make sure that you're comfortable with all of those proposed dates.
Mr. Mayor, do you think we could go ahead and approve this and adjust as we go if we need to?
You can, but the more confident you all can be right now on the schedule, the better, so that we don't get into one change after another, which tends to delay and drag out the process.
Well, if you feel good about this, I feel good about it.
Well, this works for me. I do not know whether it works for you until you all decide that it does.
Well, my calendar is pretty open, so you're asking for some dates from me that are, months out, so I'm good. Yeah, plenty of time to prepare. But I think, to Mr. Bunn's point, if something happens and we need to shift one day here or the next day there, that's a possibility. But for the overall goal of the team, we do want to accept and approve this timeline and give it our very best at making sure we follow those dates.
You all certainly will be free to adjust this through the process as you want. Councils do that all the time.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
All right. And the job ad, does that look acceptable to you all?
Yes.
Ellis, I just have one question. I'm sorry. I have one question about the degree requirement. Do you see most municipalities you deal with, is the bachelor's generally the minimum, or most recommending a master's? What's the general consensus that you see from other groups?
The way this is written, and the typical way that these are written, is a bachelor's degree is the minimum. And, it's not very specific. It says in public or business administration or other relevant field, and you all get to decide what the relevant field is. Master's degree is preferred, and that's typically a Master of Public Administration degree. It could be a Master of Public Policy, it could be a Master of Engineering, but it says preferred, that's optional. This sets out the minimum qualifications and gives you all discretion. If you see someone who strikes you as a real star, who has proven themselves, he or she, to be exceptionally capable, doesn't have a master's degree, I'm not going to stand in the way of that. Right. That's your decision.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no issues with what's been presented for the job advertisement, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the job advertisement.
I move we approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the job advertisement. Excuse me, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yes, Ellis, thank you too. Read, JD. All right. So if there is no further business to come before this council for the special town council meeting, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Adjourned.
Second.
In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good night. 53 minutes.
That went pretty good.